say again, economy is not separated from religious values. If you read the Pentateuch, the Torah, there are so many commandments about economy that has to do with equity. It has to do with the mutual responsibility, reciprocity, and also living a very good life. I mean, it's not a praise for poorness at all. But if my as I teach my children, if my stomach is full, it's not enough full because there are people that are suffering of hunger, and this is a religious point.
Welcome back to the Shape the World podcast, the Creative Change Economy series. As we build momentum for the Shape the World Summit 2026 in London, we are exploring how faith-based assets and values can fundamentally reshape global finance. Today, to help me host this episode, I invited my colleague, Dorothy Borromeo, Senior Creative Change Content Strategist at Consus. You will see her more often in our episodes from now on. Hi, Dots.
Hi, Christy. Thank you so much. It's actually great to be here. Now, to help us unpack how a multi-faith economy mark would look like on the ground, we are deeply honored to be joined by Rabbi Silvina Chemen. She's a rabbi, educator, author, and an ardent human rights activist, mainly fighting discrimination and advocating for equal opportunity, for which she was recognized as a distinguished personality by the city of Buenos Aires. She serves as a senior rabbi at Bethel Congregation, Vice-Rector of the Abarbanel University Institute, and co-founder of the Anna Frank Argentina Center for Latin America. She's also co-authored the seminal Abrahamic Faiths Initiative and currently serves on the board of the G20 Religion Forum. Rabbi Silvina, it is an absolute privilege to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. The privilege is mine. Thank you for this invitation. I'm very honored.
Now, you've been wearing so many hats as a rabbi, educator, author, and a human rights activist. And your work against discrimination even led you to being recognized as a distinguished personality in Buenos Aires. But we're curious. When someone simply asks who you are, what do you say?
It's a good question. When someone asks me who I am, I feel deeply grateful for the titles and the visibility they give to my work, but honestly, I don't believe that this transforms me into a personality. I am a woman who has lived all the possible minorities. I am a woman in a world dominated by centuries by men. I am a rabbi in a patriarchal world of men rabbis. And I am a Jewish in a predominantly Catholic country. And I am a granddaughter of Syrians, an Arab country with a beautiful culture devastated by wars and conflicts. And despite all these levels, my guiding phrase in life is we keep going because we know where we want to be. We keep going because we know where we want to be. And I feel that every person, not only the leaders or the outstanding people with titles and a microphone open to speak, every person, when faced with the question of the meaning of life, builds an horizon toward which to direct their actions, whether in small or large ways. It's a question of meaning. It's not a question of labels, I think.
No, that's great. I just realized you are a trailblazer in many aspects there. It's a lot. Now, your commitment to interfaith dialogue, it clearly runs deep based on your background and based on what you've just told us. You've also co-authored the Abrahamic Faiths Initiative, and you serve on the G20 Religion Forum. What first drew you to building bridges across faiths?
The question is if what first drew me, or what first drew
what made
others
you interested in
me.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's not that I decided, but it's a question of dialectic issue, no? People see in me, and I accepted the challenge also. First of all, I can say, because I thought about this question, I can say that I was raised among an Arab immigrant environment. And my grandfather smoked nargila with his fellows from Arab countries, from Syria. But they were Christians, Jews, and Muslims together. I didn't understand that humanity had a problem with this. So for me, interreligious dialogue is a basis of my life. I mean, it's a question of humanity. This is the education I received. For that, when I decided, or the vocation of the rabbinate decided me, and I found it, I understood that the best way of being a rabbi and fulfilling the commandments of my religion is the ultimate precept that the Judaism has, that has to do with tikkun olam. In Hebrew, tikkun olam has to do with repairing the world, healing the world. For what we are fulfilling all the commandments of Jewish tradition? For tikkun olam, for repairing the world. In this sense, what I'm doing has to do with my Judaism. But really, the story begins with the Focolare movement. My Focolare brothers and sisters, a movement of the Catholic Church that once, many, many years ago, said to me, you are more than a woman that is a rabbi, you are a voice authorized to speak about Judaism in larger worlds. And they invited me to the first interreligious dialogue conventions. For that, I don't know. I guess that God has a plan with me, because for that I was invited and I was taken into account in many initiatives, up to the point of being part of the G20 for religions. And it's so interesting because one of the organizers of the G20 of religions in 2023, he said to me, he's a Muslim Indonesian. He said to me, if the world would have known you, it would have been less anti-Semitism. They said, what? And it's simple. It's not because of me. It's because we need to be in the streets. We have to spread the voice of the majority of the people that live their religions with sanctity, with the good purposes, with honesty. And perhaps what we know about religions is what the mass media wants us to know. But the real people are people that can diminish hatred. And this is our task. At least this is what I think that is interreligious dialogue.
Amazing, Rabbi Silvina. So now a direct question would come, seeing also the situation in the Middle East. And you said you had, even though you are now in Argentina, but you have lived a little bit part of your life in the Middle East. What would be your, let's leave aside, the political reasons, the political situation, but as a Jew, how would you see the situation in the Middle East right now?
It's a tragedy for humanity. It's a tragedy. It's today, especially, we are living such a painful days. From my point of view, I should say something. What we see in the mass media is not all what is happening there. Unfortunately, we cannot reach the other narratives. But it's a question of what the algorithms want to shape in our minds and souls. And for me, now, the most important task is to be resistant to what the algorithm want to shape my mind and to spread other voices. And I've been in January in Israel and Palestine, in January, particularly with the Anne Frank Center from Argentina and the director of Anne Frank House in the Netherlands, exploring initiatives of peace. And you don't understand how many initiatives and experiences and programs and coexistences and dual nationalities and bilingual schools and programs, people building things in Israel for the people of Gaza, new curricula and education teams, medical diplomacy. There's so many things done. I've been in Bethlehem in a refugee camp with my Palestinian friends, and they also are struggling with the terrorism and the lack of sense of life that they're living. And there's a group of thousands of mothers and women that are trying to recatch their kids to the beauty of life, to the meaning of life, and they're working together with women in Israel that are not Jewish only. Women in Israel are Arab, Christians, Muslim, Druze, all women, Orthodox and non-religious, are fighting together because they want to defend their children from death, not to be killed and not to be killers. So there are so many other stories that we are not told. And unfortunately, we think that Israel now is what the government is doing. And I'm not living there, I cannot judge it. But the people of Israel are trying to build new realities for the future that has to come. But in a time, something has to end to continue life. I mean, it's impossible to think the end of a people, of a civilization, how we are listening these days. So it's very painful. I just tell you, yesterday night, after a big bombing of Israel at Lebanon, I called a friend of mine in Argentina, a Muslim one, and she told me that a cousin was killed in the bomb. And we cried together. Can I fix the political situation? Not. But I try to preserve my multi-faith existential relationship with people, because it's a question of humanity. It's a question of not being closed because you're part of one of the sides of the conflict, because the conflict has many sides, and we are all victims of the powers that are not in the middle of these wars.
Amazing. Thank you for this touching experience that you share with us. And yeah, as I can see also from your answer, the solution, if we can call it like that, comes starting from individuals like us, individuals that are living there where the problem arised, then going to faith organizations, non-faith organizations, their contribution on the ground for such tragedy, as you called it. So I would like to take a look now at the current situation of the faith religious organizations, exactly in their role of contributing to the main issues challenging the humanity. We are entering a time that could mark the end of traditional aid money, meaning it is no longer feasible to rely solely on donations for impact, exactly where it's more needed. Organizations often face financial fragility, such as carrying massive debt that leaves them vulnerable to market shifts. From your perspective, what are the most pressing financial challenges faith organizations face today, and how crucial is it that they transition toward generative capital to survive?
Oh, it's a big question to my humble role in the world, but let me say something that I'm developing in my mind and my soul, this idea. We are sure, all of us are sure, that wars has to do with an economical objective. It's not a question of territory as the wars were before. Even it's not a question of ideology. Even it's not a question of security, sorry. Security is not achieved by killing your own people, sending them to the war, but it's an economical issue, But we have to develop that peace also can give us financial profit. We have to see again that peace programs can fundraise and can gather capitals all over the world that don't want to subsidize. I don't know the word in English. Subsidize is the war. So we have to gain these hearts, because peace also is a financial opportunity. And there are so many investments in peace that are not known, that we have to work on that.
Could you give us some examples of such initiatives that you saw and you experienced in your career?
In a global in this global conflict?
Not only in, regarding to the conflict, generally how peace initiatives on one side can collect fundraisers, or it becomes a sort of a investment track for
I cannot reveal the source, okay? But there are organizations working from Israel to develop the new reconstruction of Gaza, for instance. And these organizations are going directly to governments in the world that are not involved in the war. And the governments, countries, entire countries, are investing in these processes. So this is a point. The money exists. The money exists, but where to put it? But the people that are not involved in war, perhaps they can have also an opportunity to invest in rebuild the world instead of finance the war. This is what I can say from the general perspective. Also, I spoke about medical diplomacy. I met one of the board directors of an organization in both a Palestinian and Israeli organization that has to do with medical diplomacy. I have never heard about this concept. Medical diplomacy are teams of doctors and health companies that ensure the possibility of helping people in both sides and give resources to the most wounded side when there aren't medicines, or in this time the professionals cannot go from this side to the other, but there are some agreements that people can come to the country to be healed, and the resources, the medical resources can go there through the borders. So it's interesting because this is also an economical. If you don't have money, you cannot heal people. If you don't have money, you cannot have doctors. And the medical diplomacy is beyond the political diplomacy. And this is also an opportunity of investment.
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking earlier about, the extensive damage, not only economical, that a conflict may rise. However, at the same time, the modern financial model of maximizing shareholder value is breaking and has led to extreme inequality and fragile markets even beyond the conflicts. When the late Pope Francis addressed the economy of communion movement in 2017, he made a profound plea for an economy that creates no more victims, not even one. He said that, and I quote, "As long as the economy still produces one victim, communion has not yet been realized." End of quote. To give you more context, the multi-faith economy Marx covenant structurally dedicates 1/3 of profits directly to poverty alleviation and social impact. With that, what would a global financial system actually look and feel like if it truly fulfilled Pope Francis' request?
Yeah. Let me say a pair of words about my dear Pope Francis, that we miss him so much. Thank you for mentioning him. The words of Pope Francis are in many ways an update of the message already present in our faith traditions. I mean, the social ethic that seeks to ensure that no one becomes a victim of inequality is not only strongly suggested in our sources, but also mandate as a religious practice. So it sounds very revolutionary. It's the basis of our religious traditions, right? And when I thought about this quote, let me share with you some biblical examples that I deeply love. For example, while still enslaved in Egypt, the people of Israel are commanded to, one night before the departure, to offer a lamb to God. Do you remember in Exodus? But what is the rule governing this offering? The rule is it must be shared. Nothing should be left over. No family should have more than it needs. What is the teaching here? That the threshold of freedom is the moment when we all decide that no one will be left out. What does it mean to be free? It means having acted to ensure that others have the same opportunities. And in the same way of the food in the desert offers a profound lesson. Each day, the Torah, the Pentateuch, narrates, manna would fall from heaven, and each family would gather according to its needs. If they collected more than necessary, it would spoil. Is this not an extraordinary example? Profit and accumulation, when built at the expense of what others lack, ultimately spoil within our own spirit and within our own societies and within our own policies. This is precisely where a multi-phase economic vision becomes not only relevant but necessary. If our traditions have long taught that resources must circulate, that dignity must be shared, and the excess at the expense of others ultimately corrupts both society and the soul, the generative capital is not a new invention. It is a contemporary articulation of an ancient moral truth. A global financial system grounded in these principles would not measure success by accumulation alone, but by its capacity to ensure that no one is left outside the table of dignity, because we are losing the meaning of dignity being sitting in our cushions, looking on a TV screen, how people are dying of hunger and inequality.
No, that was great. I was just contemplating about what you said about having excess and then it spoils. And I do agree that it really applies to the present day. It's very relevant. Now, we were thinking, since you work on the ground and all that, and you've mentioned that Judaism is lived outside the synagogue, not just within it. So how does that shape the way you serve your community at Bethel?
Yeah, this is a provocative phrase that I really use like a guiding phrase in my life. No, Judaism is lived outside the synagogue, and I think that every religion has to be lived outside the sanctuary, not only within it, because I feel, I live that everything we do, we listen, we learn, we pray. What nourishes us in our sanctuaries is meant to be to fuel our energies out, to go out and infuse the world with the values that our faith traditions uphold, like mercy, justice, love, care, compassion. I mean, I resemble very naive when I speak about love, care, justice, mercy. But these are precisely the values that the wild economic systems have eroded. Those who once proudly championed the ideals of progress and mistakenly confined religions within the sanctuaries because they were an ancient way of being, no? Religions as the antiques, the antiquities, and the progress as the modernity. Today, I would say that the opposite. We have come the custodians of the very values that can help any society to find its way again. In the face of economies that fuel wars in order to generate profit, faith traditions come together to create projects of peace and mutual support. And speaking about my own ground work, it's interesting because when you think about the economy of a religious organization, our world teaches us that we pay for a service we receive, okay? You pay for the gym, you pay for a language course.
Yeah.
But to belong to a religious organization, it's not to pay for a service. It's not a transactional exchange. Rather, it's a way of serving God by serving the community. And this also has to do with economics. As I said at the beginning of our pre-conversation, There's no economy of communion without actively building community. And in the Jewish tradition, there is a phrase that teaches that Kol Israel Arevim ze laze. In Hebrew, that means each person is the warranty of its fellow. A warranty. I step in when my brother or sister cannot cover their expenses. In that sense, when we calculate costs at the congregation, we also include those who will not be able to afford them. And we say this openly. And let me confess you, there is resistance in such an individualistic world, but we have never given up on this principle. We begin educating this way from childhood in our school, to the point that when, for instance, a climate disaster occurs in my region, and the media announces, for example, a call to collect water, I no longer need to ask. People bring in their own. I mean, they found the community a place of, developing another model of economics. Small, tiny, we are not going to fix the economical crisis, financial. And this is a result of an education that places the needs of others within one's own priorities. And religious communities, at least many of them, do not rely, and at least in Argentina, on foreign funding or state subsidies. Therefore, we must take responsibility for sustaining ourselves, while also giving this effort a clear educational and religious values. Let me say again, economy is not separated from religious values. If you read the Pentateuch, the Torah, there are so many commandments about economy that has to do with equity. It has to do with the mutual responsibility, reciprocity, and also living a very good life. I mean, it's not a praise for poorness at all. But if my as I teach my children, if my stomach is full, it's not enough full because there are people that are suffering of hunger, and this is a religious point.
Such a powerful example. What you said to consider in your budgeting also those that cannot afford, right? So, I was just thinking, how could we scale up that towards a global finance system? Because I would say that would be the core element in such a system. How could it be, if you can reflect a little bit on it, how would it be to scale it up at a global system level?
I'm not an expertise on that, but I can say that we have to make a profound revision of the educational programs. Because, schools, I don't know in your countries, but here in my country, economics are not taken into account till you get to the high school, and you have one subject that is called economics, something like that. But economics is part of our possibility to teach the children about a healthy economic way of looking at the others. And also it's a civil responsibility. It's easy. For me, it's easy, but it's not taken into account. Like economics is a profession, and it's not part of the daily life of the people. And for me, it's a religious principle. It's an ethical principle.
Amazing. And yeah, here you emphasize the teaching by example. That's what I read from your answer. And also, a motto of your mission is described as discomforting the comfortable and supporting the uncomfortable, right? So you gave us already some examples. Could you tell us more, some more examples? Because I see it very very inspiring, to learn from your experience.
Thank you. I think that at this time, religions came to discomfort the comfortable and support, and the opposite. Because for me, it's reminding ourselves that our time has normalized inequality, pain, and injustice.
Correct.
It has normalized poverty, and the lack of opportunity. Capitalism is this.
Yeah.
They're rich and they're poor. And it's normal. And we are used to see people, homeless people, sleeping in the streets, till to the point that we don't see them anymore.
Yeah.
We have, the system has blinded our souls. And faith traditions, by the contrast, I think that come to proclaim a different truth. For instance, in the Bible, do not withhold is the word, no? Do not withhold a worker's wage overnight. Do not deceive in your measures. Do not take a garment as collateral when it is all the person has. In other words, against the cruelty in which we have grown comfortable, religions at least raise their voices to declare that it is forbidden to settle into that comfort. And for that, religions now are a tool to denounce these abuses of the capitalistic wild economy. And it is precisely this comfort that compels us to seek new solutions. Because when you are comfortable, you're okay. When you're in your house, when you have food and you have a bed, comfort. And you see the tragedy outside your house. But when the tragedy is part of your humanity, this discomfort compels you to seek new solutions. And fighting against indifference, because this is one of the illness that we are facing these days, the indifference that makes us so aside of the people that are suffering.
No, honestly, that was a lot to take in, and it made us, it made me think about our last episode, which explored the multi-faith economy, where the idea is that faith institutions like hospitals, educational institutions, schools, are foundational economic assets, which you have also brought up earlier in the conversation. You've also mentioned about denouncing the abuse of capitalism that religious institutions should do. And with that, how do you see religious communities as contributors to society beyond the spiritual, aside from denouncing such abusive acts?
At least in my region, I think that this is an issue that it's not in the agenda yet. I mean, they're struggling to survive, but also they were gained by the wild way of living, the competition one against the other, and that the members of the communities are clients. You understand? Yeah. The religious institutions also were caught by this model. Were caught. For that, I am very discomforting for many people. So I say things that, but it's really because I think that I am betraying the religious principles when I am taking the members of my community as clients, and I'm stealing clients from the other congregation because I need more people in the basis of my economical financial system. So the multi-faith, possibility of religious institutions, it's a very emotional and perfect model that in this region is not yet close to be thought about. But let's put it as a name. Let's work on that, of course.
Like the situation right now is that the lines between business and faith are really, really blurred. So it's quite too soon to tell. But then at the same time, it's something that I reckon we should, look forward to and advocate for. And with that, as we wrap up, looking at everything that's going on in the world today, what is one thing that you hope listeners of our conversation would take away from this?
One thing.
One thing. Among many others.
Yeah. You know that there is a golden rule common in all traditions and worldviews. Sort of do not do the others what you don't want to be done to you. This is the golden rule. But I think that this is the first step. But if we are talking about humanity, I'd like to remind us that we are part of it, and that no one is exempt from taking responsibility for his place. And let me conclude with a quote from the Talmud. It says, "It is not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you at liberty to neglect it." And it is a famous teaching from Rabbi Tarfon that emphasizes that while you may not complete a massive task or fix all the problems, you are still obligated to do your part and not desist. And this is my message. Do not desist. We are not going to desist. We are not going to surrender the hostile way of understanding humanity. We are going to fight with our peace tools and our sources in our traditions and our love to take care of humanity.
Rabbi Silvina, I would go on and on, asking you more and more questions. If there is one word that I would describe, you and this conversation, would be your incredible passion. I really feel that, passion for the human beings around you and maybe for humanity. Your personal mission, as we said, discomforting the comfortable and supporting the uncomfortable, is exactly the kind of bold, transformative leadership that we really need now. It is clear that bringing your perspective to the financial world is a vital step towards answering Pope Francis's plea for an economy that creates no more victims. Thank you for.
And may I add, there is one word that I would like to describe you, Rabbi Silvina. You are brave. You are a very brave leader. And I do agree with Christy that we should definitely have more conversations like these, because there's so much to do, so much to learn from each other. And I think it's a great thing. So once again, thank you very much.
No, thank you. And we have already met, so we continue together, okay?
Oh, definitely.
Thank you so much for the interview. Thank you.
Cheers. For our listeners, this conversation is just a glimpse of what's to come. We look forward to exploring these ideas further with leaders like Rabbi Silvina at the upcoming Shape the World Summit, which will take place in London on October 15, 2026. If you want to learn more about the creative change economy and how the multi-faith economy mark will be uniting faith-based assets for a shared future, be sure to visit our summit webpage in the description section. And with that, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, keep shaping a better world.